And we are live with my friend Samad. How do you say your last name actually? I
It's
don't want to mess it up.
Saifudin. Saifudin.
Samad Saifudin. And Samad is a fractional CMO, a fractional, wow, why can't I say that word? A fractional chief marketing officer. That's weird. I didn't know I couldn't say that word too well. Fractional chief marketing officer for a lot of different companies. Why don't you explain what a fractional CMO does, what your role is?
For sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Jordan. And yeah, so basically, what a fractional CMO does is it came out of a necessity. So I'm actually going to give a little bit of context before I can give a definition. It came out of the necessity of um, kind of the explosion of marketing agencies in the market in general.
Right.
Everyone is basically saying, hey, you can go start up a Facebook ad agency and go get leads for people. You could go
Mm-hmm.
create content and be a blogger and do all this other stuff and get clients. Um, and really, that is all great, but there is no actual clarity on direction usually. What usually ends up happening is most of agency owners out there will go get small businesses, um, maybe up to a medium sized type of organization that might have a couple pieces of infrastructure in, and pretty much just get direction from an agency. Basically, how far can you jump or go do this? And you're scrambling pretty much to just make sure that you do what they're asking you to do, mainly for the fact of you want to make sure that you keep that retainer going and things like that.
Right.
So, what a fractional CMO does, and sorry, my son just came into the
It's
room, so we're
okay.
gonna have
It's cool,
that
man.
kind of conversation, but it's pretty normal now. It's BBC News all over again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, pretty much what came out of it is out of a need of, kind of having a whole bunch of different account managers and an agency that I ran about 4 or 5 years ago. I saw that the account managers were always just essentially just putting out fires all the time. It goes down to
Right.
niching and, you know, business owners and who you're targeting as your audience. But I saw that it wasn't really even that's what everyone's kind of talking about. It really goes down to you got to be able to have the authority to talk to whoever client you are with, um, and give them like clear strategy on what should be done in what sequence. Otherwise, none of this marketing stuff really works. I mean, if you don't have content, you're not going to really do well with Facebook ads, or
Sure.
vice versa, or this and that, right?
And so you do this with a lot of different companies. People hire you to do
Yeah,
this.
pretty much. I took the necessity of need of like a lot of different large organizations would need like product marketing taken care of and someone to think outside the box. And I took it and kind of did an anti-agency model
Mm.
where it is a little top down, and unless you have a way to replicate yourself in terms of the amount of strategy and knowledge on marketing you have. So you could obviously scale with that and have more higher level like thinkers to be kind of driving all of the actual process. But we typically start by really just doing a full on understanding of their budget and building their budget, and then giving a complete understanding of what a cadence and what process needs to happen before doing any of the work.
And what are some of the ingredients in that cadence in that process?
Um, it really just depends on the type of company that we're working with. So I'll give an example. If it's like a larger organization, like a university that
Uh-huh.
has typically a need for admissions, and more students to fill in butts in the seats type deal. We take that first. We then break it down into its own budget and what elements need to actually come out of it. So all the white papers, articles, blogs, all of that kind of stuff obviously is important. And usually what I think is what people start with, thinking, they just kind of run with things. And we really look at what the system would be to implement that throughout their whole organization, whether that's like a HubSpot or a CRM first. And once we have that system in place, we then fill out what I call, and really it's a HubSpot methodology. If you hear the word HubSpot being thrown out quite a bit, it's because I really believe in
Yeah.
inbound content more than anything else.
I like HubSpot too. They develop
They
good
put some
stuff
good
there.
stuff out.
They
They
do.
are really a resource for people. And in the complete understanding of what the definition of a fractional CMO is you are filling in a stopgap measure of a company that's looking to hire a marketing manager at, let's just say, a $30-$40 hour rate, or maybe a $60,000 to $75,000 salary, and give that organization that is looking to hire someone like that a lot more clarity. So usually what happens is they're looking to hire a marketing manager, but there's no one to give that person clarity on what they need to be doing. They literally just take,
Hmm.
an owner of a company, a CEO or whatever is like, I'm just going to go hire a marketing manager, just go start posting stuff. And that doesn't really work. They have no guidance and clear,
They don't know how to
direction.
train the marketing manager.
That is exactly right.
Okay,
Yep.
and you as somebody who knows the process and tried and true has done this at many different companies, like you're just an easy plug and play solution, a much more efficient, cost effective solution probably.
Correct. Yep. So we'll come in. I'll go in and drive the whole strategy. Either then our team does do some of the work, but I am not taking on all the burden of all marketing. Um, we'll take on the pieces that make the most sense, that we probably excel at more than anything else,
Right.
copywriting and so on and so forth, maybe. But everything else, we do place someone in that organization, or if they already have someone that kind of fits in the role, and some smaller organizations do have like that type of person that they want to be the social media kind of coordinator, maybe per se. We'll take that person, give them the direction,
Um,
and really become their higher up more
like
than anything
uh,
else.
like Brian has, I'm sure you've worked
Yep.
with Ashley
Yep.
Bryant. Yeah, so
Yep.
I like that's Ashley is Brian's social media coordinator. I
That's
know
right.
this is I know for people have no idea what this example is, but I'm just making sure I understand it. This
Yep.
is Brian Paris, my uncle
Yep.
of pain arthritis relief, and Ashley is his social media coordinator.
Right. Yep. So it becomes a little bit more where there's a lot more clarity on what needs to happen. Um, Sometimes there's pushback because it's a third party kind of introducing themselves. So
I get
that's where the
that.
name
Yeah.
fractional CMO comes in. It's really becoming like we're integrated into your hierarchy, in your company hierarchy, and stop thinking of it as a third party consultant,
Right. Okay.
um, and more of a team player that's really there to help guide full on strategy.
And so, what are the sorts of things that you do to grow a company's revenue? Like, maybe even, I mean, if you're thinking of another example, that's fine, but I'm thinking of like a digital agency. I think there's a lot of those out there. And I think that right now, those are, while we're all quarantined, those are one of the few, like, companies that can still operate
Yep.
pretty seamlessly.
Right.
So, like, how would you grow a company like that?
The name of the company, although I am a fractional CMO, it's Funnel Marketer. So I do believe that everything could be done with the funnel.
Eh,
Most
And what do you,
marketers,
yeah, sorry,
yep,
go ahead.
yeah, most marketers think of a funnel as really a series of different pages, right? Opt-ins, thank yous, blah 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 blah, right? It really isn't just all of that, right? Like the copy is important. All of that is extremely important. There's a lot of psychology that goes into it. But for anyone to really grow, we really do kind of look at taking a funnel and making sure that the systems all talk to each other as well. So I'd say that's probably our most important differentiator more than anything else. It's really the tech that we get a complete, clear understanding of. The copy, I think, is more of a passion.
Okay.
That I like kind of working off of and can really get really detailed on growing that piece and writing something that becomes a really strong hook and offer. But if you're looking to grow, it's really making sure that all your systems are talking with each other. You build a funnel that has the appropriate offer, whether that be teaching something, using it as a course or whatever it may be. But that lead magnet per se, if again, using a course as an example, really needs to be focused on lead generation more than anything else. So you have to always think about that upsell then too. So fractional CMO is what I kind of brand myself as. But in my case, everything that we do, whether it's a university, a large bank, whatever it may be, we are putting together full-on funnels that talk with other departments and can be executed really quickly.
What do you mean by that? Like talk with other departments?
Mainly, if you're looking for who you're targeting and you got larger organizations you're working with, you definitely have a lot more pieces moving, right? You got different departments that are running different products or different complete functionalities. You got the admissions team that has to talk with, the continuing education team. I'm going to use the university example again. And quite frankly, the funnel has to not only capture that person's information and make it a lead for the admissions team, but it also needs to tie in with whatever the continuing education guys are doing, so they keep getting the right messaging after. So complete full-on systems connection. That's an important part that I think everyone misses.
And how are you generating a ton of leads and starting more conversations?
It's an interesting thing. It's probably the biggest tidbit that you can probably use with your audience. There is a ton of ZipRecruiter, Indeed, whatever, LinkedIn messages that are all putting out marketing managers out there. They all think, again, just like I just said, they're all looking to have a marketing manager that they can pretty much just tell them to go do this, this, and this. And you have to just act quickly without really thinking. I usually take that message or that particular post, use the right tools on LinkedIn, if we're going to talk that LinkedIn conversation, to find who the HR person is or the C-level, higher up that's going to be really looking for that particular position, whether or whoever it is, and reach out to them. Typically do an application fill. In general, I have like people on my team that will do that just to kind of circle or like cross all the T's and dot all the I's and just say, hey, we followed your process, but your process is not working. So we'll hit them up on LinkedIn correctly, do Loom recordings, basically doing a whole full-on audit that we'll send to them.
Right.
Loom's a awesome little screen capture tool.
Yeah, you've sent me emails with a Loom reply many times.
Right. So we'll do the Loom recordings, give them like, hey, this is what looks like you guys are looking to do. I saw that you have this particular job post. You got a 65. Why are you doing that? Let's take that, put it into where it needs to be, and maybe get a fractional, playing on the word again, no pun intended, a fractional cost of maybe a coordinator to really know what the heck they're doing. They're not just doing things without really getting any milestones and really some KPIs met at that point. And usually that message does really work. If as long as they respond and they see the pieces, and we have a whole bunch of other tech to sure that we're hitting them. So it's not just linked. sitting
Hey
in the
buddy, hey
mail. So
buddy,
there's obviously
you're breaking
connections that
up.
happen,
You're
and
breaking up really bad, really bad. Hold on. Hmm, that's inconvenient.
I think
Uh-oh. No. Damn it.
AirPods.
I don't know that your AirPods are the problem. I wonder if you could, if you hit stop camera at the bottom, if we go without out video, that would work. Uh-oh. Hey, Samad.
Yep.
Oh, see, there we go. That's video is too much right now. Okay, so this works.
Okay. So where were we? Yeah. So basically, it is a full on tech spring of pretty much using pieces to get to the right person's inbox. Um, and there's a lot of retargeting that also happens as well, so they kind of see the name a little bit all over the place. But with that being said, usually we do get a pretty solid open rate. We're actually, as crazy as it is, about a 25% open rate for almost a cold connection at the first beginning. I do obviously try to warm it up by connecting with the people and starting to spark some conversation. But I also think that LinkedIn starting, especially right now with COVID-19 happening, starting to become a little saturated with those messages. No one really follows those as much.
Right. So you're getting in their email inbox, you're saying?
We're getting into their email inbox, not as a spammy newsletter type style.
Right.
There's some automation that I use, like Woodpecker and things like that, that will do that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And sending them a Loom video, which most people will actually do, and will actually click on.
And I'll say I rarely get those, but when I do, I reply almost every time. Actually, I don't know that I ever haven't replied to one of those. Like, I will, if it's a normal pitch, like, I don't know that I ever reply to those at all. Like, they just, it's a very, they're very it's very saturated. Like, I get those all day, every day. We all get that stuff every day. So I think using Loom videos as a prospecting tool, once you have your prospect, but using that as an outreach tool, I think that, or part of your outreach, I think that it's a great way to do that. And that's something that I have to do a lot more, Samad.
Yeah, I sound like an affiliate of Loom, but I think it's I think it's the best way to get a message out, but also show that you're being thorough and you really care about what they're trying to do. And again, if you're being a fractional CMO for the person, or want to be, you got to be a full-on team player. I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of agency owners really just kind of forget about. They don't actually they're really chasing the dollar in a way. So they'll do whatever they can to get that work done. But as soon as that, business owner is like, hey, we need to do another campaign for lead gen, they'll go jump right back in, start from scratch. And they're not really being a full-on team player. And that's really where marketers specifically run out of fuel when they should always be at the forefront of growth of any business. I mean, so it's actually, as funny as it is, most businesses, especially smaller businesses, but most businesses in general, will cut their marketing budget first. It's almost like you're shooting yourself in the freaking foot. And I think it's mainly because they don't want to deal with giving the direction. So if you're a third party vendor, independent contractor working with a business that's, you're trying to get them Facebook ads so they can get leads or whatever, or you're selling an e-commerce product, it really doesn't matter. If they see it as extra work to even manage you and talk with you and really have an integrated process. I mean, I have all my clients on Slack, so I know that they're part of the team in general, and try to keep it as much of an open book. And I think transparency is key, and Loom really does help with that. I know I'm trying to tie back into Loom. So you got to take in a lot of, you got to take more steps, right? You can't just send out a cold email and just see what sticks. You actually got to go spend some time doing the research. But your click
Right.
rate, your open rate, and quite frankly, your proposition, your value prop is just so much more stronger.
Yeah, showing them that you care. I mean, it's something that I do with podcast guests. I mean, part of the reason that I've been able to get such big guests on Growth Mindset University is the second actually the first paragraph is like at least 2 or 3 sentences, not gloating or anything, but showing that person proving to that person that I actually care, that I've actually done a lot of research, that I've consumed their content, I know the deal, and I'm not just another person reaching out to them because I want somebody famous on my podcast. It's because like
Right.
I actually look up to them. So I think applying this to your outreach strategy is great. Now that I see this strategy working for like a business with a high price point. I see this working for yourself, Samad. Obviously, it does. What about like I'll throw out an example like a SaaS company where $20 a month for like their product, their service. Um, would you employ the same strategy? Because you obviously have to get a lot more than just 1 or 2 or 10 clients to make this a lucrative thing or customers. How
Right.
would you go about marketing something that needs to be one to many, where you need a
Yeah.
lot of signups?
Yeah. As crazy as it is, it really does. Again, it's another funnel, but it's really just webinar funnel at that point.
Webinar. Oh.
Yeah, it would be a complete webinar funnel. It honestly does not need to be that difficult. It's almost pretty much taking the Loom functionality that we're doing on a higher ticket item and just doing it for a mass purpose. So the webinar has to be built out in in a certain method, right? So you obviously got to teach people what it's all about, and give your praise and get all your why people use us and blah 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 blah, all that kind of good stuff, which does go into the power of threes on the webinars that I usually build out. 3 slides for each. A longer webinar is the key to success. I think everyone freaking thinks that it needs to be a short thing. It again goes down to your content. If the content is engaging enough and they can stay till XYZ, where you can open up a sales page or whatever it may be for people to buy, they got to basically be able to take care of all of their resistance on that webinar. Anything that they're thinking about, it's not really even what they're doing, but whatever they're thinking about, if they're actually engaged and listening to you on that webinar, you have to cover all of those objections throughout that webinar. So by the time you get to the end of it and you're kind of taking care of questions, you really are just basically inviting people to use your product, your SaaS product at that point.
Okay, but like, how are you getting people on the webinar in the first place?
So, yep, there's obviously a cadence and a sequence to that as well. So, yeah, you obviously have different ad elements and things like that, but you probably will start with like some sort of lead magnet, some sort of issue that you're trying to solve, whether it's
the webinar itself is not the lead magnet.
The webinar itself is never the lead magnet, and I think that's the biggest problem that people see.
Big
right? Like people say
misconception.
that the webinar is the lead magnet.
It's the first time I'm hearing this too. I've never done a webinar for the record, by the way.
No problem. Yeah, no, the webinar is never the lead magnet. And I think it is the biggest misconception ever. Like everyone says, oh, I'm going to do a webinar funnel. I will just put ads to a page that basically has, what time the webinar is going to happen and see how many signups I get. And quite frankly, it usually falls flat.
Oh,
so you have to have the content in place that are tied into the ads, right? So you got to get the email sequence. So the ad would probably be more about like, hey, here's a checklist of 5 things you can do to make sure you're more efficient with your day. Whatever tools you're using, you're obviously kind of pitching your own. Um, you can give that out as a freebie, collect the email, and then on the second step, once that email happens, it's really where you start talking about, like, let's do some actual full on views of how this actually works.
Right.
And
Man,
then you pitch them onto the webinar.
man, I gotta say, man, all this stuff is borderline overwhelming, even for me. Where can people, Samad? I pull up your LinkedIn profile here. You're out there on the link. Where else can people learn more about everything that we've talked about today? Is there a place for that?
Um, Pretty much, I'm a very LinkedIn centric operation. So honestly, I will check if you do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd actually say that's the first step. Definitely connect with me and shoot me a message. I will put out my email. It's just Samad SAMAD at Funnel Marketer. Pose any question. Don't even give me like what your thought is. Just pose a question, and I'll do the research first before I get back to you. But
Nice.
those are probably your best routes, either LinkedIn message or email.
Nice. That is very generous, Samad. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you joining me today. It's been real. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.